Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Arlene Lamaika. I am the president of the Japanese American Citizen League of the Monterey Peninsula. How many of you have not been here before? Please raise your hand. Oh, we got a few people here. This building was built in 1926. This May is 100 years old. So on May 2nd, we're having a big celebration to celebrate the hall. This used to be the center of what was called Japan Town. I do want to thank Santa Cruz, Watsonville, JCL. Can you please stand up? And also, this is also co-sponsored by Gilroy chapter of the JCL. Anybody from Gilroy here? Please stand up. And also the San Benito chapter of the JCL. Anybody from San Benito?
Thank you.
Well, let's give them a big hand. What I'd like to do is give the microphone to the Secretary Treasurer of our chapter, Pam Daly-Lamaika, where she also has some announcements to make.
Thank you all for coming. Just out of curiosity, raise your hand. How many heard about this from a posting in a library? We're just trying to get a feel how we can get the word out for our events. What about Facebook? Okay. And the newsletter, our newsletter. Okay, good, okay. There's quite a few events coming up, so if you're interested in getting our newsletter, if you want to take, we have business cards back there, if you want to email me, I'll get you on the newsletter email list. We have quite a few activities coming up. Some are through us and some are other organizations. Important is that CSUMB on March 19, they have their second APITA festival, and last year I had to look at what APITA was. It's Asian Pacific Islander Desi American. So it'd be great to show up. It's between 12 and 4 p.m. at the CSUMB campus and help support the students in our community. Real important event coming on Saturday, March 28th. These are all in the newsletter, so you know you get the newsletter. Stories of Topaz. We have several women coming down from the Bay Area who are going to talk about their internment at the Topaz camp in Utah, and kind of a very timely topic. So that's at 2 p.m. here in our hall, and we're sponsoring, so you can come to that. We're in the middle of our film festival, so the first Saturday of each month we have an event here. Right now we're doing a series of 6 films. Next one. It would bring an evening because it's an adult film. Usually our Nakayoshi is at 1 p.m. We'll be at 6 p.m. A real special event coming up is on a Tuesday, April 14th. It's the Palchikov Hibaku violin, and this is a violin that came from Russia, went to Japan, was in Hiroshima when the bomb fell. The violin came here as Mr. Palchikov was teaching Russian at the DLI. And then the family recently donated it back to Japan. And we have a young woman coming from Japan who will be playing that violin here with another 12-year-old. My brother, who's a violinist, says she's amazing on the violin. We're going to do RSVPs for that just to make sure we don't go over our maximum. So you can email us if you're interested in coming to that. Our big event, as already mentioned, is May 2nd, and that'll be from 10 to 3 p.m. here. We'll have all the activities we're still working on. There'll be martial arts, bonsai, ikebana, taiko, the Japanese school, which has been meeting for like 80 years behind the curtain here. We'll be doing some presentations and doing some origami with you. So hopefully you can join us for the all-day event. And I'd like to thank Greg, who's our, because I don't know how to set these things up, so he set up the movie for us today. And I'd like to introduce Chihiro. She's been a huge part of this event. She set up a whole 6-film series for Nakayoshi, and she found this film and has been in contact with Emily Nash and has invited them to come do this film, and so we're really excited. So I'll turn this over to Chihiro, who will introduce our guest.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to the filmmaker and subject protagonist of this film. So the director and producer, cinematographer, and co-writer is Emily Cohen Ibañez. She is a Latinx filmmaker based in Oakland who earned her doctorate in anthropology in 2011 with a certificate in cultural and media arts at New York University. Her film work pairs lyricism and social activism, advocating for labor, environmental, and health justice. She has become known for her collaborative methods that challenge the colonial heritage of documentary filmmaking. With parents who migrated from Colombia to the United States and a family legacy of escaping violence from Aleppo, Syria, Emily knows that what it means to cross borders and fashion new identities. Her documentary, Bodies at War /Mina, 2015, premiered at the El Festival de Cine de Bogotá and screened in 22 municipalities, most affected by landmines in Colombia. Her short films reach wide audiences internationally through The Guardian, The Intercept, and Independent Lens. Emily is a recipient of the Just Films Ford Foundation, Firelight Media Doc Lab, Sundance Condenda, and National Science Foundation, and was a Fulbright Scholar. Her feature documentary, Fruits of Labor, that we're going to see today, had its world premiere at South by Southwest in 2021, winning multiple awards on the festival circuit, and it was also broadcast on PBS POV as a documentary. So we're very, very happy to have Dr. Emily Cohen Ibañez with us today. And we also have the protagonist of the film, Ash Pavon.
Thank you so much, Chihiro. It's such an honor for us to be here. We're really excited for you to watch the film. And this is going to be very brief because we're going to, please stay because there'll be a Q&A afterwards with Ash and I, and Chihiro will be moderating and asking us questions. But just wanted to say, this film, we did it during the first Trump administration. And so watching it with that lens, we can think of a discussion on how this is reverberating today. And that's all I really have to say. But just to please stay.
Yes, please stay afterward for the Q&A portion. And we'll catch up with the filmmaker and protagonist and talk about what they've been doing since the making of this film. It premiered in 2021. So it's been several years since. So I'd like to thank them for coming, and
As a little kid, my mom often said, once you get the tortilla to puff up on the stove, you'll be ready to marry. My mom got a divorce. My mom said to me, nosotros tenemos los pantalones de la casa. Ella trabaja 7 días a la semana. Soy la única que puede cuidar a mis hermanos si algo llegara a pasarle a mi madre. Empecé a trabajar a los 15 años en la costa central de California, en donde nací.
If you work hard, you can get to your dreams. Dream big and work hard.
Le digo, yo no tengo papeles, pero tú, si tú sacas tu preparatoria, vas a poder agarrar un trabajo mejor que yo para que no fuera una muchacha más de las que ya hay frustrada.
¿Cómo desearía solo preocuparme de las cosas que se preocupan las chicas de mi edad?
Presidente Trump amenaza con deportar a millones de indocumentados.
Immigration and Custom Enforcement agents conducting raids on the Central Coast this week.
¿Ya venían para acá arriba?
Pues según que tocaron acá arriba. No sé cómo será mi futuro.
Thank you all for coming. We can now begin the Q&A session of this presentation. So we will open it up to questions at the end if you have any questions, but we're trying to be pretty comprehensive with our questions so that we can learn about this film. So Emily and Ash, can you please tell us a little about how this film was made? Emily, how did you come to be involved with this project? Did you and Ashley know one another prior to making this film?
So I can start. So thank you so much, and thanks for the Japanese American Citizens League for sponsoring this and for the invitation to you. And yeah, so Ash and I got to know each other, was it 2015? And I think you were 15?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was teaching this visual sociology at UC Santa Cruz, and wanted my students to do a collaboratively authored film with Watsonville youth whose parents worked in the fields or other or domestic labor, and they did the River Park project framework, and you can talk a little bit about that. And then Ashley stood out. She's sort of always beyond her years, highly intelligent, but also extremely kind and caring about her community. And I just was really struck by that. And then in 2016, after the Trump election, I saw that all the students, young people I've been working with, most of you guys, many of your parents were too afraid to work in the fields, and all of them were replacing their parents. So there was this idea of a labor gap and I worked in journalism as well, and the story I didn't see the story being told and who was filling that labor gap with the threat of deportations. And I thought it was an important story to tell, and Ash was the person to lead us through that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we started the project?
So yeah, like Emily was saying, I had met her at just 15. I was at this youth activism group called Youth Growing Justice. We founded 2 of the gardens over in Watsonville, just revolving around the different dilemmas and the different problems we were seeing in our community. And one of them was, 2 of them was just financial stability and food insecurity. So we came up with the solution of maybe urban community gardens can take a big role into one of the ways we can just solve that issue. So my mom has always been an advocate for Watsonville community. Her English was very, just not there all the way, so I was there as a translator. At court, it was only me and her, and we were trying to regain land back from the community. And fortunately, we were able to get part of that land back, so that's how we started River Park Garden. And I got to know Emily once that whole garden was fully done and stuff. And then we went from there. We started with the short film, and then it just progressed to a 2-hour-long film almost, yeah.
So what was it like to be the protagonist of a documentary? Ash, can you tell us a little about your experience of being filmed over the course of a school year, and how did your siblings, friends, and especially your mother feel about being featured in this documentary?
Yeah, for sure. Growing up, I was always a shy kid. I think once I turned 12 was when I saw that my mom was for sure revolved around advocating for community. She had always been an activist, and I saw that her language was very was just keeping her back from going further. So I became this translator for her. As many of us younger folks in my community, we always become the translator. And then from there, I got a snippet of it and became very passionate about my community. And when I met Emily, I did see a lot of issues going on. I knew I had a goal in life, and I did not know how I was going to get there. But now I can say I look back and I was just like, okay, it took 6 years, but I'm here now doing what I want to do. My family was very open to it. My mom she always lived in fear, so for her being okay with it and almost not, she didn't say yes or no, it was just like, go ahead and do what you want to do. And my brother was for sure a little shy. He looks back and he's like, how come you didn't scold me and told me to do more for the family? But I was like, you were only 15, you had no idea what was going on because we were protecting you so much. So we were predominantly like females in the house and only one boy, so he was always sheltered. And now he has his 2 kids and he's like, you should have done something, I could have helped out more. And I was just like, well, we spoiled you too much. So yeah, but they were all for sure there for me with the film.
Yeah, and I could say it takes a great amount of courage for someone to allow, I was just so honored to be allowed in Ashley's life. I had gotten to know Ashley and her family over 2 years before we started doing the film, and I was concerned about visibility on one hand can create advocacy and protection for people who are undocumented, but it also bears risk. And so we were really conscientious about location, and before we were screening, and getting legal help. So we did an impact campaign that we can talk about later, but gotten many different legal organizations involved to create kind of protection and review of the film and seeing how we go out in the world. But it was something I was concerned about. But Ashley's mom, when we would talk, she, as an activist, felt she really believed in doing the film as well. And so, yeah, it was just, it took a lot of courage. And, but I think we've been really happy with how everything is rolled out. But there is definitely moments of being quite nervous about it.
So in light of so I remember seeing the coverage of the increased ICE activity in Watsonville and the local news at the time. We were living in Monterey at the time. So how, if at all, did the final film kind of evolve from your original vision?
Well, when I approached Ashley, with the Youth Core Injustice was really about food security and an experiment in collaborative filmmaking. But then doing Fruits of Labor, it really came from the concern of the election of Trump and the increased ICE raids in the community and how that was affecting youth and mixed status families. So that part of the vision was there from the beginning. At one point, I thought it would be you and a friend of yours who worked in the field, but it evolved to really focus on Ashley and her family. So, there was definitely, as when one is making a film, it's different coming to know someone and then how are people on camera, and Ashley has just a real naturalness in front of the camera because it is invasive. I mean, we have a big camera and it's our little sound equipment is small, either just me or 2 people, but still, we're definitely present. So, just Ashley and her family I have to say, you guys look amazing in front of the camera. So it just lent itself to the story going really focused on their family.
So had you been on camera before, Ash, or experience with
Well, this is kind of interesting, and I think it's full circle. During my junior year at the high school I went to, we had different academies. And I remember I picked Film Academy. My mom was super mad because she wanted me to be a nurse. And there was some nursing academy, and I chose Film Academy. So I had something with film. I always liked to be in the background, like holding the camera and doing everything. But it was my first time being in front of a camera, so I for sure let Emily take the lead, and I was very open to it with transparency. And like my mom always had a joke like, "What if I get deported? What's worse? I get deported, you guys have papers at least and can go visit me. Like I did my job." And so I was just like, all right, you know. But everything turned out fine.
So we know the film ran the film festival circuit. My husband and I, our history with this film is that we happened to see it in March of 2022 when the Washington, D.C. Environmental Film Festival went virtual due to the pandemic. And I know that screenings were held for farm workers in the area, and the film actually had a screening tour in Mexico. So can you tell us a little about your experiences screening and promoting the film, especially during the pandemic?
Yeah, so, you know, my interest in filmmaking, there's the artistry and the lyricism, and that experience and process and what that does, but also the activist element of it. And so we were able to do a really robust, you know, impact campaign between Mexico and the US. So the film, well, we were in festivals in both countries and also further, you know, in other Ecuador and other countries. But with our impact campaign, we were able to go from the southern tip of Mexico, have the film screen in shelters, where people who are migrating from the southern tip of Mexico all the way to crossing the border. We gathered over 40 partners, many who are involved on both sides of the border with immigration law, and created a pamphlet, a Know Your Rights pamphlet, as well as the resources, so for people to know whether or not you cross the border with or without papers, everybody actually has rights. And so these are the resources when you cross, people you can contact. And then we were able to, it was during COVID-19, and most of our festival circuit we were doing virtually. So for me, and I think for the both of us, you know, one of the things of making a film is it's kind of a party, it's a celebration of showing and sharing it with people. And so we did an impact campaign in doing outdoor screenings in migrant camps through California, and schools as well. And we would have like a hot meal, we'd have free legal services. We did one of them at we had the lowriders guys come, and they did a physics lesson through lowriders. So really creative, people got involved. We have, you know, it almost was like a little carnival. So yeah, and do you want to speak? Because Ashley was very involved. You know, it was such amazing. It's not always protagonists of film want to like keep going, but Ashley was very involved. And as an activist, do you want to talk to me a little bit about the impact campaigns?
Yeah, I guess it opened my eyes to understand that I was not alone. At some point, I feel like I was like the turtle I reference in my shell, thinking I was going through this alone. And as we progressed with the different campaigns we did, I realized like we're almost in a parallel world where a lot of students in Mexico go through the same hardships, and a lot of resources are there for us. And I quickly feel like I regained power, and I understood like we're not alone. Everybody's going through this in some way or another, and there's always a solution to many of the circumstances we're going through. So for sure it was an eye-opener for me, and to keep on going with my advocacy and with the film festivals I would continue doing.
So, Ash, I'm sure everybody wants to know about you and your family and the changes that have gone on in your life since the film was made. Can you tell us about any of your current projects and interests, and about how your mother and siblings are doing?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's almost a full circle moment, because I knew I've always wanted a stable job. My mom wanted me to be a nurse, because in Mexico she was a nurse, but when she crossed over, her credentials didn't cross over with her as well. So for the last 6 years, I was working into learning who I really want to be and what do I want to do. But for sure, so I was the head household of the house for a while, for the past 6 years. I had 3 jobs, and I was always like, why is my money not enough? And I quickly noticed it was like I was trying to feed or trying to, you know, be there for 6 people. Last year I finished my associate's degree in Harnell, and now I'm in a registered nursing program, and hopefully done by December. Yeah, full circle moment, I'm doing that now. I talked to Emily about how I'm really into filming, but there's a lot of seminars we went to, and I heard a lot of filming is not stable, and I was just like, all right, I know it's a hobby, but I also don't want to turn it into something where I'm always struggling. So I for sure went back to getting my nursing degree, and hopefully in the near future I'm able to come back into filming.
So you did tell us a little about, how about your siblings and your mom? How are they doing?
My mom, she finally is able to go through her paper process, citizenship. She's finally working no longer here with the working permit. Thanks to all the different organizations we were able to meet through the different transitions we did. With film, we touched a lot of different nonprofits where she was able to understand she's also not alone. My brother, he has his own family of 2 kids now. Now that he has 2 kids, that's why he tells me, like, you should have scolded me, you should have told me I could do more. I was like, well, we spoiled you too much, I guess. My sister, she's a behavioral technician at Salinas District. And my sister finally turned 18. She finished high school, and she's going into an ultrasound and radiology tech.
Emily and Ash, you spoke about the films, a little bit about the film's relevance in light of recent events. How do you feel about recent events that have occurred in our political climate and the film's continued relevance? You know, if anything, the current climate makes the film just as important or more so at this time. We'd be curious to know your thoughts about that.
I can start and do it because we were talking about this in the restaurant. Yeah, I mean, this is such a difficult time, and such a difficult time for many of us. And it's horrifying. I mean, we've only known the surface of what's happening at the camps, and the fact that this has become global, in terms of these detention centers, and just being here at the Japanese American Citizens League and thinking of this history of internment and how that has developed now into like a multinational business. So a lot to be concerned about, but we were talking also the hopeful aspect when we were making this film. There wasn't, I remember even when because I have to do fundraising to do this stuff as well, and when I would be pitching for impact campaign to help fundraise to organizations, they wanted me to always eliminate my language around abolish ICE. So interesting, and now that has taken, they thought that would totally get me out of any possibility of funding if I talked about those views of mine. And so it's so interesting because now we also see this incredible uprising of people. Abolish ICE is not even considered that radical anymore. There's a real fight. And so, immigration has been, I grew up in Arizona in the 90s. I was in high school, and we had to deal with Sheriff Joe Arpaio. This has been going on for a long time. I think that Americans and the world are becoming more attentive, and I believe that we're going to win. There's going to be a lot of suffering, but we're going to win. So I don't know if you want to talk.
Yeah, I could say something about my local aspects and views. I would say at some point with the topic of just being transparent and talking about abolishing ICE was very something, the topic where you don't touch it because many of our community members, we live through it, and our only way to keep on going to work is living in fear or working under the table. So it's like the little way to get by, we're almost taking it away. It almost seemed like for some people we were being transparent. But But now as time went by, I realized in my local community, our film festival, you see a lot of stories of younger folks being open and using that space to also share their stories and understanding we're not alone. So I'm really glad to see that, how at some point we were living in fear, and now we're making this whole movement where we're not afraid to stand up for our parents, for sure, and just younger communities being more involved with their different activism roles that there is. So I'm really glad to see that in my local film festival, that there's a lot of different stories. And I do feel like Fruits of Labor was almost like that pivot point for my community. Like, this is what we're living, we're going by, and this is reality. Like, let's share it and not continue and normalize what shouldn't be normalized.
Yeah, and just, you know, we noticed in the local news just yesterday, KSBW was reporting about a study that was done with a local nonprofit and UC Santa Cruz. We were talking about just the salaries that farm workers are making. They're making $27,000 when you need $75,000 to live in this area and to be able to afford to work. So it's these topics of food insecurity and income inequality, in addition to the mixed status families, is becoming so relevant right now. And so we're so glad that you touched on these topics in your film. Emily, I know that you've made additional films since Roots of Labor, and can you tell us a little about your current projects and maybe where we might be able to access them?
Absolutely. So I did a short film that you can watch free online through Time Magazine online or PBS POV online streaming. It's called Soul in the Garden, about a formerly incarcerated woman in East Oakland who finds community through Urban Gardening Collective. And she's really inspiring. We followed her last 3 months of incarceration, actually during COVID, and then her release. And it was really cool because Ashley was our impact coordinator, because Ashley just she's such, I'd always recommend her for filmmakers, she knows it, she's been behind the camera, in front of the camera. So that was really cool, because Ash continues, we're kind of always trying to see when we can work together now behind the scenes. And so that film, has gone around and it has environmental and labor race themes. And then I'm currently been working the last 4 years. So my family's originally from Colombia, and it's a film called Orquídea, which is orchid in Spanish. And now I'm in it. I know, this is crazy. Which is something I initially didn't think I was going to do. But it's about a diasporic filmmaker who enters this mythical labyrinth of flowers and encounters unlikely alliances in ecological conservation from ex-guerrilla fighters, biologists, indigenous communities, and farmers. And it's called Orquídea, so we're now in the last stage of production, and I'll be in Colombia working in partnership with the Awa indigenous community, and we're building a film set in the jungle. So it's very exciting, and we're also working with lawyers to make orchid ecosystems legal persons in Colombia, and that follows these themes. In the United States, Black people who were enslaved were considered 3/4 of a person. Women were given less than full personhood status, while corporations have enjoyed full human rights status to being full persons. And there's a rights of nature movement now of how do we have beyond humans as persons, and a way to rethink about land and property law. So that's been this work in 4 years. It takes a long time. It'll probably come out in early 2028, maybe mid 2027. And then I have a short that was sort of a little tributary, kind of a little offshoot of that film called River. And it takes place in the Colombian Amazon, and it's a group of ex-combatants in the FARC, which is a leftist guerrilla group that was fighting to overthrow the state, and they put down their arms in 2016. And farmers, and they created a river rafting team called Paddling for Peace. So it's going to be a short film that comes out this September. So I'll let you know once, hopefully it'll get good distribution and be freely available. We're in like a kind of a crisis moment in film. All the art, a lot of the arts funding has been taken away. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, we usually work with PBS, has closed. Many of the diversity initiatives that we kind of fell under with our film also closed, people been laid off. So there's a real upheaval, but on the bright side, filmmakers are forming collectives. We're finding different ways to get our work out there and to support each other. And so there's a lot of exciting work happening and very surreal kind of movement in the indie film kind of thing happening. Co-productions with Latin America. I think that there is good things on the horizon in this kind of difficult time. But yeah, so those are, I continue working, but as Ashton mentioned, it can be an unstable lifestyle, and we're often working many jobs. But yeah.
So this is a question for both of you. Do you have anything additional that you'd like to tell us about, and how can we support you and continue to support your work?
I guess just being present and advocating for your community, and understanding that we shouldn't normalize issues that we see and speak up. And just like I always say, we're not alone. Somebody on the other side of the world is going through our same situation, possibly, and just speaking up. And for sure, it's like moments I felt I was going through this alone, and then getting into the program I'm at right now, I understood that many of us had our own struggles, and at some point I felt like graduating high school was not going to be a possibility. So yeah, just understanding we're not alone and continue to support your community.
And I would say right now friendship and community is so important. I feel like Ash and I share a friendship that has continued and evolves in these different ways. And I think that's kind of the basis of revolution. And just keep planting those seeds, participating, resisting fear, and taking care of each other. That's what we got to do right now. And it's all that love, and I really believe that's bigger than the kind of evil that's happening in the world.
I want to thank the Japanese American Citizens League for bringing you all here. Our two sons studied Japanese here for 8 years, and our older son married a woman from Osaka. So I think it was very successful time. But I want to say, we are living in very scary times, but even during COVID, I always thought of it as a blessing in disguise, because we learned to do things that we weren't doing before, like the virtual, working at the computer, getting people together virtually. Now that the federal funding has been, cut away, now is the time for grassroots. And grassroots has always been very strong. I feel like when you get money from the government, there's always, you have to do things according to what they tell you to do with your money. But when people come together and say, this is really important, we make it happen. We don't need the government to do this kind of work for us. The arts, justice, everyone working together for equal rights. We have to do it ourselves. And it's so great that this is happening in March, because it's Cesar Chavez's birthday on March 31st. He was a real mover and shaker. So continue this good work. Thank you for the film, and we have a lot of work to do, but we can do it.
This question is kind of focused towards Ash. I was just curious to, how this, making this film, how impactful it was for your local community as well as your classmates, and how did it open up avenues of, being able to find resources in order to solve the problem of the immigration, ICE, and all this madness that's going on in this country.
Yeah, for sure. We did a lot of community activism while we were doing the film. We had a whole open film race screening outdoor at Watsonville High, as well as we had another location we did it and had different lawyers with different resources. And that was just when we were collecting funds, right, for the film. And a lot of people turned out, and yeah.
Right, the women's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Women's League or Mariposa, and they help with advocating women and just with low income and resources. I did see a lot of my middle school, elementaries, teachers coming in. So it was very impactful. I also realized that during high school, a lot of us were going through this epidemic where most of us were missing school in order to go to work at night. And most of that wasn't talked about because obviously we would get in trouble. At some point, one of my teachers didn't know about it, and it just slipped, and I was so scared. I was like, what's gonna happen with me? But I realized the teachers had no idea this was happening, and now there's a whole club out there in Watsonville High School where it prioritizes the students with low income or needing help to go ahead and talk, and it's a free space where you can go for resources. And like I was saying, I recently went to an outing for an opening for my local film festival, and I got to see that there was a lot of short films where you see a lot of the younger generation speaking up about their struggles and their families' day-to-day life and what they're going through, and just not being afraid and opening up and not normalizing the issues and speaking up about it. So I'm very grateful that was a big just pivot moment that our film was able to make it happen.
And it became part of the curriculum of Watsonville High to teach English. And if anyone teaches at a school K through 12, there's the PBS lending program, and you can borrow the film, and they helped us create educational materials. So if you're teaching in the classroom, there is teaching modules, and so yeah, that's just a resource if you want to bring it to your school. And then we also have a distributor for universities and communities like that, Grasshopper Films.
I was just wondering, the dialogue about immigration seems to be something that it's the elephant in the room, and we don't really want to talk about it. It's other presidents deported people, but they were deported in a humane way and then given it a chance. At least they weren't in cages, and that at least given a process of coming back through the system, through paperwork, and so that's not happening. I've been at a meeting once where a agricultural grower says that, if there isn't a answer to this, then they'll just have to go. They're having trouble getting people in the fields. And part of that was there was a lot of resistance to opening up CSUMB because kids would actually go to school instead of the fields. And the fact that they would move agriculture to another country that would be a lot less, expensive and, not being a problem. Not to mention the environment. We have a Mediterranean climate here. We can't move that to China or somewhere else. We have, there's so many externalities about this. So why can't we talk about immigration? Why can't we fix this? Because the workforce feeds us. They were essential workers during the pandemic. If they weren't out in the fields, we would have starved. And they were the most impacted by the virus. And yet we still the farm workers feed us, and immigration with the sixth largest economy in the world, California. So I don't know. I'm so glad to hear the youth. I belong to Safe Ag, Safe Schools, and Flock. Future Leaders of Change are very active in dialoguing with the community, but we need to talk about immigration. We need to get this understood, because now it's just like the whole country is just, protecting the physical safety of the people, that they don't even know if they're citizens, they're not even working in the fields, I think immigration and values have to be talked about, to suggest that to keep a child from school, not open up a university, to keep them in the fields. Where are our values? I just don't understand it. I think we need to talk values, and the same fundamental things we were talking about that would put the internment, the beautiful, at the Monterey Museum of Art, they had a wonderful showing of the art in I think it was Manzanar. And it was just so, and it showed just, gave us a look into it, but it wasn't, there was nothing about the paper thin walls and the freezing winter, there's a human element no matter which country you belong to. We need to start thinking about how to treat each other humanely, and look at the true facts of the matter. We can't move our climate to another place. And no, we're not going to shut down the universities. We're going to invite the kids to go to school.
And I just wanted to add, so when we were showing our film, we were doing our impact campaign, and we started in Truckan. So Driscoll Berries, for example, has moved to many of their operations. This is a multi-billion-dollar business. So I think that's really follow the money. And this has to do with something that's beyond just nation states and its boundaries. This is about these multi-billionaire businesses with CEOs who are making a lot of money at the top and not paying the workers on at the bottom of the pyramid. But they've had because of the difficulties of doing the work here, but it's also unfair to do low-wage labor. They're moving their operations to Mexico, and it's had dire consequences. So we met in Pascua, I remember, the elder farmers who were fighting to stay in their land. They grow traditional corn, and they have ways of growing food that is actually more environmentally sustainable. And they're being, by gunpoint, threatened off their land. And the berry business, Driscoll is taking over that land. And so it's all strawberries now. And it's a decimation of tradition, of the Mexican Revolution, the division of land, in which people each have their parcel of land to grow. All of that is, being stripped apart, and operations. Many of our strawberries now come from Mexico. So it's thinking. That's why in our campaign we wanted to do a binational. But really, this is international. One of our most interesting screenings, the Industrial Workers of the World, based in Ireland, contacted us, and we did a virtual screening. And there were workers from all over Europe, farm workers and people who come from East African countries. From all, this is a global, we were kind of told in some distribution circles, I had to deal with that part. We're too niche. No, this is global issue. It's food. It's the most intimate thing, and something we all need to do is eat.
Yeah.
And so, paying attention to how that industry operates, and that there are other ways to grow food, and that we've done for thousands of years. And this is a newer experiment, and it has a lot of damage to the environment, and to people. Right?
In your viewpoint concerning the big corporations overtaking these lands to enrich themselves, is it in connection with partnership with the local governments that is allowing them to decimate these small communities because of the fact it's all about making a profit, I'm sure. And so how are the local politicians being involved with a lot of this?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the small towns in California, there are kind of oligarchies, I think it's fair to say, and have a lot of influence over your local government. And then as far as national politics, absolutely. So like in Mexico, these corporations were lobbying to be able to change the laws that ensured Mexican people it was a certain division of land that happened with the Mexican Revolution, and now that people have the option to sell their land. That's a new development. And so what happens is these companies come in, they work with also illegal groups, and there's the drug cartels, and it's quite complicated. It's become kind of a mess, and so they're working with these outside of government groups that then threaten folks and make them sell their land and get off their land. And whereas these elderly indigenous men said, no, I don't care, kill me, I'm gonna stay here on my land. So, but a lot of the younger folks, and they wanna have families, and so they're leaving their way of life, they're selling off their land and becoming, workers. And so, I mean, it's absolutely an intersection between local politics, national law, and corporations and lobbying, and then kind of whether it's a paramilitary or kind of mafia kind of groups that also become a part of how power is consolidated within very few people. And so then and I think, in my viewpoint, we'll keep falling into fascist tendencies and authoritarianism as long as power can be bought. And it's too much power. There's, being the billionaire class, it's really about power. And I think that until that changes, this is a cycle we'll keep falling into.
And there was a documentary that, the scenery, the park, the whole flow of the scenery. I kept waiting for a cameo of Tom Joad showing up and saying, I'll be there. You know Tom Joad? Anyone know Tom Joad? Greg Spratt, I'll be there. So like, we need a cameo here of Tom Joad coming in and sending just a put a little spirit into a documentary. What do you think about something like that?
Copyright.
Well, I think for sure from the beginning, we were seen as just a cute project, right? Or just like, oh, it's not gonna make it far. So in the beginning, we did not have so much support even from my community. It was more like you're kind of taking away the only bread that people are putting in their table by being super transparent. So it took a while to get supporters. I think we saw a lot of support once we started the film festivals and just going out there to the communities. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I know what you're saying, the connection of Grapes of Wrath. I mean, this is like, you talk about a little bit of film, right? Slavery as being kind of foundational to how current food systems operate. There's a great book, aside from Grapes of Wrath, from an anthropologist, Sidney Mintz, called Sweetness and Power. I highly suggest they're readable. It's not like super academic, but and really the history of sugar. And that was really influential in thinking of the film and how labor and land are organized. So yeah, this story has been told many times in different iterations. Yeah, I mean, one thing with the relevance of immigration or labor or land issues, it doesn't go away. You know, it keeps, the relevance is always there. And you can look at that throughout history. So, no, thank you for saying that. But in terms of, you know, we experimented a lot with making the film, so we have those, you know, what I call the black boxes. So we just put like a black sheet. I got a $50 mist machine, and just one strong light, just as a way to show interiority. But that at the time, even when I did a short with The Guardian, I wasn't allowed to even have your narration or those because it seemed not objective enough. So it's through the arts that I can do that. And my practice has gone even further towards mixing kind of elements of fiction and nonfiction. So it's storytelling. But yes, absolutely, this is a story that will keep coming back.
We'd like to thank you all for coming, and especially Chihiro and Greg for finding the film. And both of you for coming and taking time out of your schedules, especially being in nursing school from a newly retired nurse. Thank you. And I'm sure some of you in Watsonville probably recognized a few of the places there. And I guess there's one more comment or question.
I don't want to monopolize it, but I just noticing that when it does get sent, when labor gets sent to another place, there's not the infrastructure for pesticide regulation or labor laws or so many things. In a lot of the countries that it goes to, they have little or no health care. And so, but grassroots, what you said before is really, really powerful. The pesticide reform has been central in Monterey County. Pretty much anything that has happened in that has happened here. And now we have, for the first time in history, we have notices of intent to spray that's happened. The Department of Pesticide Regulation, with a large group of activists, have been going up to Sacramento talking to them about this scourge on farm workers and communities, these very poisonous chemicals that are in our air and water and soil. But that they've listened to us this time, and January 1st, 2026, there's, now you can go to the Department of Pesticide Regulation and sign up for spray days. And if you know or have somebody that has asthma, a child especially, then that where, when, what is being sprayed, almost the exact location within a mile. We wanted it more exact. But, and at first we wanted it in Mixteca, Zapoteca, and other languages, and they said only Spanish and English, but now they've given us the full smorgasbord. It's in every language that there is. And it opened up January 1st. And if you sign up, then you can also help your neighbors who might have a child or an adult that has an immune system that's lowered. So and that was grassroots. That took like over about 20, 30 years. But of course, Cesar Chavez was, you know, talking about this in his last fast was about pesticides. So it's, like you said, it's ongoing. But don't underestimate local, our local voice.
Just a reminder, if you want to get in our email list, go ahead and grab a card and email us, because we have quite a few upcoming events. And we just have a little token of our appreciation from the JCL for taking your time out to come here.
Yeah, again, I want to thank you for all coming. And again, this was sponsored by not just our chapter, the Monterey Peninsula, but also with the Santa Cruz Watsonville chapter, the Gilroy chapter, and the San Benito chapter. So we could not have done this without their help as well. And in appreciation, we'd just like to give, it's the Japanese custom to give a little gift